In another scene, Jin Mori reflects on his 17th birthday and his long separation from his grandfather, Jin Taejin. He recalls that his grandfather left him to confront dangerous adversaries when he was just a child. Yu and Han surprise him with birthday wishes, bringing food and spending the evening playing and having fun together. They make a pact to win the tournament, even though Han can't participate due to his suspension. The following day, Jin Mori receives a letter containing a map and a photo of his grandfather, who is shown bound by chains, raising concerns about his safety. Jin Mori rushes on his bicycle, determined to save his grandfather. He mentally apologizes to Yu and Han, promising to return in time for the tournament. Meanwhile, the quarterfinals have begun, featuring a match between Seoul and Jeju, two teams that were seeded into the tournament at the last minute. Yu and Han search for Jin Mori but can't find him anywhere. The blue-haired woman suddenly appears and informs them that the fight is about to start, urging them to return to the stadium. She warns that if Jin Mori doesn't arrive before his turn, he will be disqualified, and their team will be eliminated from the tournament. Later, Yu stands alone in the ring as Han was disqualified earlier. She resolves to buy time for Jin Mori to return. Just as she prepares to face the opposing team, they arrive wearing black robes, raising suspicions that they might be associated with the Nox organization. The fighter set to battle Yu removes his robe, revealing his muscular body and a wooden sword that belonged to Yu's father, adding tension to the upcoming fight. In the midst of her fight, Yu's wooden sword shatters, and her formidable opponent reveals a national treasure known as Fengxian, harnessing its immense power. This revelation shocks Yu, as she was unaware of the sword hidden within her weapon. Her muscular adversary taunts her, highlighting that despite years of training, she never realized the true nature of her sword. As the intense battle continues, Yu manages to disarm her opponent momentarily. However, when she attempts to wield the sword, she recognizes it as her own, but it promptly vanishes from her grip and reappears in her adversary's hand. He explains that the sword recognizes its true owner, and it now acknowledges him as such. Meanwhile, Jin Mori arrives at an abandoned location in pursuit of his grandfather, only to discover a disturbing scene. He finds a person impersonating his grandfather, and when this imposter's head grotesquely turns backward and then inflates, it results in a catastrophic explosion, obliterating the surroundings. A mysterious man appears and informs Jin Mori that his intention is to eliminate the strongest competitors in the tournament in his quest to reach the key. Jin Mori, undaunted, prepares for a fierce battle as the man multiplies into numerous identical clones. Simultaneously, Yu continues to endure a brutal beating from her powerful opponent, who mocks her for her perceived lack of strength. Han's search for Jin Mori leads him to a room where he discovers Pum lying on the ground. As he enters the room, a woman appears, prompting Han to engage in combat briefly. However, he decides that he doesn't have the time to waste on this confrontation. In the midst of this encounter, Jekyll enters the room and is seen admonishing the woman for her actions. Then, we return to Jin Mori's fight, and he struggles to defeat the clones because of their overwhelming numbers. They all launch themselves at him, breaking through the floor. As they fall, Jin Mori realizes that the lifeless bodies of the Jeju team members that Yu is fighting are present. The man explains that they killed the Jeju team members and assumed their identities to secure victory against Jin Mori's team. Jin Mori presses certain points on his body, numbing himself for the next hour. Meanwhile, the muscular opponent continues to overpower Yu, and she lacks the strength to defend herself. He taunts her, suggesting that Jin Mori won't return. Yu begins to strike back upon learning that her friend has been harmed. However, her attacks lack the power to inflict any damage. The muscular opponent delivers a powerful blow, causing Yu to fall unconscious. Yet, at that moment, she finds herself suspended in the air and begins to sink into her subconscious. She hears the voice of a god of war and recalls the fond memories she shared with her friends. The god of war decides to grant her its powers. Yu rises, and we witness her ability to summon the god named Lu Bu. As a result, her sword returns to her hand. The muscular man also harnesses his Charyok, Kraken, but Yu easily defeats him. The announcer declares Yu the winner, but she feels extremely tired and collapses to the ground. Just before hitting the ground, Jin Mori arrives and supports her. Yu is relieved to see him. The presenter then announces the start of the second match. While they are tending to Yu's injuries, Han expresses his happiness that she managed to acquire Charyok. However, they can't help but notice that Jin Mori is unusually angry, unlike anything they've seen from him before. The fight commences, and Jin Mori's opponent inquiries about how he managed to escape from the clones. Jin Mori remains silent and launches a powerful attack using blue dragons. This power isn't derived from a god but was created by Jin Mori himself. As we witness Jin Mori striking his opponent, it simultaneously reveals how he defeated the clone man earlier. In a later scene, we delve into Ilpio's memories, where Jegal inflicts a severe injury on his best friend, Seungjun, by breaking his leg. At the hospital, they inform Ilpio that while Seungjun will eventually be able to walk again, she will never be able to practice martial arts. Ilpio seeks out Jegal and subjects him to a thorough beating on the ground, demanding that he apologize to his injured friend. However, the police arrive and apprehend Ilpio. Following this incident, as he exits the police station, a man outside hands him a letter. It's revealed that this letter is an invitation to participate in the God of High School tournament. After considering the offer, he and the other girl decide to join the tournament with the hope that the prize money can help their friend. Park explains to Jin Mori, Han, and Yu what transpired with the imposter Jeju team. He reveals that these individuals posed as others in an attempt to eliminate them from the tournament, but their efforts failed. The group will still compete in the semifinals. Han inquires about the motive behind the attack and who might be behind it. The scarred man discloses that it was orchestrated by the Nox organization. Meanwhile, we revisit the man with the clones who had been defeated by Jin Mori and is now severely injured. Jegal arrives and asserts that he isn't a member of the organization but cooperates with them to gather information. As he departs, he summons the giant shark, killing the injured man, and declares his intention to claim the key. The tournament presses on, and Jin Mori's team squares off against Ilpio's team. Yu and Han continue to observe Jin Mori's unusual behavior, noting that he is quieter than usual. Subsequently, the fight between Han and the girl named Sunga commences. Sunga launches a fierce assault on Han, but he recalls the information Park shared with them earlier. Park had explained that Nox's objective is to prevent others from harnessing Charyok's power, and those who master it must join their organization. This is why they abducted Jin Mori's grandfather, who possesses immense power. The group expresses their determination to confront Nox, but Park reminds them that they are still too weak. However, he promises to provide them with information about Nox if they emerge victorious in the tournament. In the midst of the fight, Han lands a powerful strike on the girl, sending her tumbling to a corner of the ring. Ilpio advises her not to continue as the odds are stacked against her. However, she resolutely refuses to yield, emphasizing that she refuses to fear the same fate that befell Seungjun. She's determined to honor her friend's memory by fighting until her last breath. With this determination, she launches another attack at Han, but his strength proves insurmountable, and he emerges victorious. Han approaches Jin Mori, who has been exhibiting a different demeanor, and reassures him that they, as a team, will win the tournament together. Following this, Yu embraces them, stressing the importance of their unity and support for one another. Jin Mori, moved by his friend's words, realizes he had been acting wrongly and reverts to his playful and jovial self. Meanwhile, Ilpio watches their interaction with a sense of sadness as they tend to his defeated friend. Seungjun arrives and acknowledges that Sunga had mentioned their participation in the tournament. She expresses gratitude to Ilpio for his concern regarding her leg. However, she encourages him to fight not for her but for his own desires, particularly his wish to confront Jin Mori. Fueled by her words, Ilpio prepares to return to the ring, claiming that he now feels ready to do so. In a different scene, we witness the leader of Nox, Sang, unleashing his deadly powers, disintegrating several individuals. His actions are interrupted by Park, who has seemingly reappeared after a long absence. Sang acknowledges that it has been a while since Park made an appearance and then proceeds to reveal his knowledge about Park's intent to organize the tournament in search of the dormant key. Following this revelation, Sang performs a potent spell that manifests a symbol in the sky, emitting a piercing light that shoots into the heavens, creating a portal. Through this portal descends a colossal sword, the very same one that once appeared to Jin Mori's grandfather. Subsequently, we return to the ongoing tournament, where the highly anticipated battle between Jin Mori and Ilpio is set to commence. As the fight begins, Ilpio candidly informs Jin Mori that his current taekwondo skills won't be sufficient to defeat him. Ilpio proceeds to outline 3 crucial mistakes he believes Jin Mori is making: an inability to handle close combat, announcing his attacks aloud, and techniques that place excessive strain on his own body. Ilpio begins landing blows on Jin Mori, who seems helpless. Ilpio takes the opportunity to taunt Jin Mori, suggesting that his grandfather would be immensely disappointed in his current state of weakness. At this pivotal moment, Jin Mori contemplates how to turn the tide of the battle, and abruptly employs Yu's moonlight sword-style technique, surprising both Yu and Ilpio. This technique proves effective as it damages Ilpio. Jin Mori follows up with Han's Black Tortoise technique, demonstrating that he's actively addressing the weaknesses Ilpio had identified earlier. Turning our attention back to the portal, a shadowy figure with godlike characteristics emerges and exerts force upon the giant sword. Sang had hoped for this godlike being to pass judgment upon the tournament's organizers. However, Park intervenes by summoning a cross-shaped shield, preventing the sword from wreaking havoc upon the city. Subsequently, a man wearing a hat, accompanied by a group of drummers, conducts a series of invocations, opening yet another portal. From this portal, hands emerge and seize hold of the sword. It becomes evident that their leader has summoned one of the 6 powerful beings. Meanwhile, on the city streets, the organizers find themselves engaged in combat with Nox's followers. Park struggles to maintain the cross-shaped shield, which still forms a protective barrier. At this critical juncture, a creature emerges from the second portal, clamping its jaws onto the sword and causing it to shatter. The organizers erupt in jubilation, celebrating their hard-fought victory. Following these events, we return to the intense battle between Jin Mori and Ilpio, where both fighters are pushing themselves to the limit, unleashing the full extent of their powers. It becomes evident that Ilpio has been providing guidance to Mori throughout the fight, leading to an impressive display of martial prowess. In a moment of reflection, we glimpse a memory from the past when Jin Tijin and Jin Mori visited Ilpio at the Martial Arts Academy. During their visit, the elderly man asked Ilpio if he would be willing to teach his grandson some valuable lessons if they were ever to cross paths. Remarkably, Ilpio fulfills this promise by imparting his knowledge to Jin Mori. As the battle reaches its climax, Ilpio eventually falls to the ground, defeated but content. He takes solace in the fact that he has fulfilled his commitment to Jin Tijin by helping his grandson become incredibly strong. However, as he lies on the ground, he enters a peculiar dreamlike state where he encounters a white-tailed fox. In this moment, Ilpio fervently declares that he cannot afford to lose. To the astonishment of all witnesses, he rises to his feet, undergoing a dramatic transformation. His hair turns white, his eyes glow yellow, and he manifests 9 fiery tails. This astonishing transformation leaves everyone, including Park and Sang, in awe, as the power emanating from Ilpio surpasses anything they have ever witnessed. Upon witnessing this extraordinary development, Sang smiles and proclaims that the key has finally revealed itself. Of course, I can assist with that. Please go ahead and share the chapter you'd like me to edit for clarity and readability, and I'll make the necessary adjustments in past tense and at a 7th grade reading level. Back in the midst of the fight, everyone, including Jin Mori, is astounded by Ilpio's transformation. Jegel's Charyok resonance led him to believe that Ilpio might be the key. Ilpio confidently announces that the real battle is about to commence. Jin Mori attempts to strike Ilpio, but his blows prove ineffective due to an invisible barrier that shields Ilpio. In response, Ilpio launches a series of devastating counterattacks, causing Jin Mori to be thrown to the ground. Uncertain of how to overcome this formidable opponent, Yu and Han watch in amazement, impressed by Jin Mori's unwavering determination. Ilpio motions towards his head, and Jin Mori notices his evident distress. In a series of defensive maneuvers, Jin Mori realizes that Charyok involves not only harnessing power, but also mastering one's own mind and body. In this realization, they find themselves on equal ground. Ilpio releases a fiery fox attack directed at Jin Mori, but as the fiery beasts approach him, they disintegrate into nothingness. The day grows dark, and a brilliant light radiates from Jin Mori, extending towards the heavens. He begins emitting powerful rays of energy from his body, leaving Ilpio astonished by this sudden surge of power. Following his incredible transformation, Ilpio launches a formidable attack known as the Night Parade of 100 Demons. However, Jin Mori responds by creating a powerful whirlwind that propels Ilpio high into the clouds. From above, a colossal hand descends, forcefully returning Ilpio to the ring and ending his transformation. The announcer officially declares Jin Mori as the victor, prompting the audience to erupt in celebration of the epic battle. Yu and Han excitedly jump into the ring to embrace Jin Mori. Han inquires if Jin Mori had utilized his Charyok, but Jin Mori himself remains uncertain about the extraordinary events that just unfolded. Sang, on the other hand, is taken aback by the outcome and exercises caution before making his departure. Meanwhile, Mugen instructs the team to secure the key while he seeks immediate medical attention for his injuries. After their lighthearted banter, Jin Mori pays a visit to Ilpio in the hospital room. They continue their friendly dispute over who's the stronger fighter. However, once they're left alone, Jin Mori confides in Ilpio, revealing that he's currently unaware of his grandfather's whereabouts. He expresses his determination to win the tournament, as the scarred man has promised to provide information about his grandfather if he emerges victorious. Concerned for Jin Mori's safety, Ilpio offers a word of caution, emphasizing the danger of facing Jegal in the finals. Despite the impending challenge, Ilpio pats Jin Mori's head affectionately, evoking memories of their shared childhood and the bond they've developed. Following his injuries from Jegal's previous attack, Jian Jugok is determined to continue fighting for his family's corporation. As he walks through a hospital corridor, he unexpectedly encounters Jegal. The two engage in a fierce battle, with Jugok undergoing a monstrous transformation that allows him to absorb people. In his rampage, he captures Ilpio's friends, trapping them in his body. Ilpio, despite still recovering from his own injuries, attempts to confront Jugok but is severely weakened. Jegal intervenes by using his shark teeth to pierce Jugok's monstrous form, successfully rescuing the girl who had been absorbed. However, Jugok releases his body tissue, capturing Ilpio's friends in the process. Although the girl trapped inside Jugok tries to reason with him, Jugok's frenzy continues, leading to a gruesome encounter where Jegal summons his shark, resulting in the girl's demise and severe injuries to the boy. Witnessing the suffering of his friends, Ilpio is consumed by anger. He grabs Jegal, and their battle escalates, ultimately leading to both of them falling from the top of a building. In a separate scene, Sang, the leader of Nox, makes a declaration while walking down the street. He announces that he has finally identified the key and releases flying monsters into the area. In response to this escalating threat, Park decides to bring an end to the God of High School tournament. Amidst the escalating chaos, a colossal godlike figure descends through the portal, its shadowy presence casting a sense of awe and dread over Jin Mori, Yu, and Han. Sang, the leader of Nox, seems to revel in these events, declaring it as both the beginning and the end of something significant. Shifting scenes, we witness the grandfather of Jugok, who is determined to avenge his grandson's tragic death, even if it means sacrificing his own life for this cause. The narrative then delves into Jegal's backstory, shedding light on his past. It is revealed that he was forcibly separated from his mother and subjected to intense training with the expectation of becoming a winner and inheriting the family fortune. Despite taking devastating blows from Ilpio during their battle, Jegal staunchly refuses to embrace the label of loser that his father had associated with his mother. Back in the present, Jegal and Ilpio are locked in a ferocious battle, where both of them unleash their Charyuk powers to their fullest extent. Ilpio's anger has consumed him, blinding him to reason, while Jegal recognizes this transformation, likening Ilpio to an untamed animal. Meanwhile, the tournament organizers find themselves engaged in combat against the flying monsters that have emerged from the portal. Hugh is elated, as he stands to earn a substantial sum of money for each monster he eliminates, which he plans to use to pay off his debt. Park intervenes, creating a protective shield in the sky to prevent the descending god from wreaking havoc on the city. Sang, the leader of Nox, reveals his sinister goal, to obliterate every fragment of the world itself. Ilpio persists in his assault against Jegal, but Jegal retaliates by summoning a monstrous entity that bites into Ilpio, causing him to revert to his original state. The key, which had been within Ilpio, hovers in the air, becoming the focal point of a fierce struggle as numerous individuals vie for possession. Ultimately, Sang manages to grab hold of the key, only to have it swiftly kicked away by Jin Mori, who is perplexed as to why everyone is fiercely contending for it. Meanwhile, Park continues to maintain the protective shield, resisting the destructive force of the descending god. In response to the escalating crisis, the United States government launches nuclear missiles and withdraws its alliance with Mugen, asserting that their advanced technology renders the old gods powerless. Given this dire situation, someone alerts Park, who casts a spell to transport the tournament participants to a remote location amid the mountains. However, Ilpio sustains serious injuries in the process. Han employs his Charyok, which possesses healing properties, to tend to Ilpio's injured friends. In that moment, Sunjian provides Jin Mori with an explanation regarding Ilpio's motivation for helping him become stronger. Ilpio foresaw powerful threats looming over the entire city, prompting his efforts to prepare Jin Mori for these challenges. Just then, Ilpio regains consciousness, and Jin Mori reveals the presence of the key to him. Although Ilpio remains unaware of the key's nature or why it resided within him, he earnestly implores Jin Mori to keep it safe and refrain from surrendering it to anyone. Jekyll reappears on the scene and inquiries about the key's whereabouts to Yu and Han. However, they steadfastly refuse to divulge any information, prompting Jekyll to launch an attack against them. In a subsequent scene, Jin Mori embarks on a search for his friends and discovers them in a severely injured state. Han advises him to flee due to Jekyll's overwhelming strength. Jekyll boldly declares himself the victor and proclaims his intent to claim everything, including the key, as his own. After that, the god continued to break the shield, and at that moment, all the people in the city disappeared. The old man, Jian Yisen, had teleported the people to a location outside the city to protect them from harm. He only sought revenge against those who had killed his grandson. Following this, Jian pierced the nuclear missiles and used his divine power as one of the 6 to destroy the god's shield. The flying monsters died in the explosion. During the fight between Mori and Jekyll, they both felt a powerful explosion and returned to Seoul. Jian fell to the ground, while Sang remained unharmed. Upon seeing Jin Mori, Sang asked him about the key. However, Jekyll summoned monsters that surrounded Mori's friends, using a tentacle that emerged from his back. Jekyll bound Jin Mori and took the hidden key from him. With the key in his possession, Jekyll stated that he could finally surpass the gods. He devoured the key and transformed into a baby, rapidly growing and sprouting wings like an angel. Afterward, he reached his final form, which looked very different from his previous appearance. Jekyll mentioned that it was his destiny to absorb everything and return to nothing, and he declared his intent to kill all the weaklings. Park and the other organizers observed that the gods seemed to have been defeated, but Jian died after causing the explosion, and they didn't know where Sang was. Meanwhile, Jin Mori, Yu, and Han contemplated leaving the area when suddenly Jekyll appeared in his new form and began to attack them. His strength was vastly superior, and even Jin Mori was injured by his blows. He grew angry with Jekyll for harming his friends and used the acupuncture technique taught by the old man. This technique involved touching various parts of his body to overcome his physical limits. With renewed strength, they started attacking Jekyll together, but he retaliated with lightning. Giant monsters then appeared, attempting to crush them. Jekyll wanted them to suffer before dying and threw a spear-like power at them. However, Han stepped in and got hit in the back. Despite his injuries, Han asked his friends to escape. In that moment, Jin Mori unleashed a new power, and a giant staff fell from the sky. Sang was shocked to witness this and realized that Jin Mori was the guardian of the key, Satan Teze. Mori removed the headband from his forehead, which transformed into a crown. His eyes changed color, and the staff shrunk to his size. Jin Mori grabbed it and began to beat Jekyll with it. Everyone watching was utterly amazed as Jin Mori unleashed his newfound power. Jekyll summoned giant monsters, but Jin Mori easily pierced through them with the staff. His anger was palpable as he demanded an apology from Jekyll for hurting his friends. Jin Mori began to name each of the people Jekyll had injured, taking revenge for their suffering. He hurled Jekyll toward the ground at tremendous speed. Despite his injuries, Jekyll got up and declared that he would never be a loser. In response, Jin Mori gathered clouds in the sky and repeatedly struck Jekyll with lightning. Park informed the organizers that Mori's power was not borrowed from a god but had become divine at that moment. Jekyll lost his transformation and fell defeated to the ground, while Sang and his followers disappeared. Yu and Han approached Mori with hugs, relieved to see him back to his usual self, hungry and all. However, Mori struggled to remember what had just transpired, and the crown on his head caused him intense pain. Jekyll managed to rise once more, but his face began to age rapidly. Determined, he transformed into a grotesque, multi-handed monster. Mori attempted to summon his powers again, but they failed him. Just then, Ilpio arrived and reminded him to trust his comrades. The 4 friends embraced each other, ready to face Jekyll together. They reveled in the joy of fighting alongside each other, and Mori unleashed the power of the blue dragons, ultimately obliterating the monster. In his final moments, Jekyll recalled a memory of his mother bidding him farewell. Despite Ilpio's attempt to reach out to him, Jekyll pulled away, bidding him to live a good life. He was then devoured by one of his own monsters, meeting his end. Ilpio managed to catch some fragments of the key from Jegel's vanishing body. Then, a woman emerged, declaring herself one of the six and the progenitor of the human race, claiming to be the strongest and most significant figure in the tournament. She informed them that, as the winners, they had the privilege to make any wish they desired. In a rush, Mori approached the woman, expressing his desire for help to save his grandfather. However, in that moment, he recognized the needs of his friends, some of whom were missing body parts due to the battle's toll. Mori realized he couldn't be selfish and decided to put his own wishes aside. Instead, he made a selfless wish for the injured participants to have their bodies restored to their original, uninjured state. The woman used her power, and miraculously, those who had lost limbs or suffered injuries were completely healed, returning to their condition before the battle. She also informed Mori that his grandfather was indeed alive, though his presence felt extremely weak. Mori shouted for joy upon hearing the news, and his crown disappeared, but he fell into a deep slumber due to exhaustion. The scene shifts, and Mori awakens from a 3-month slumber. He heads to the kitchen, where he finds Yu and Han busy cooking. In a flashback, the wish-granting woman informs Ilpio that the key fragments have been scattered across the world. She entrusts him, as the guardian of the key, with the task of gathering them, as the key possesses the power to challenge and potentially defeat the gods. Mori learns that to regain his lost memories from the battle, he must visit Satan Teise's homeland. Determined to grow stronger, Mori, Yu, and Han decide to embark on a journey to a distant location. They share a heartfelt moment, hugging each other, and Mori expresses his belief that the three of them will become stronger together. He also vows to find his missing grandfather. In the final scene, Jin Tijin remains imprisoned in a dark dungeon, his arm missing. Despite his dire circumstances, he thinks about his grandson and firmly believes that his grandson is capable of defeating even gods and challenging destiny itself.